I need help. My husband is demanding a paternity test for our newborn baby. Is there any law to prevent it? I am currently typing this with shaking thumbs from the corner of the nursery, while Mark is pacing in the kitchen with one of those terrifying DNA kits he ordered off some sketchy website. Our beautiful son is only 3 weeks old, and instead of basking in the glow of new parenthood, Mark has become a literal investigator over the shape of a child's ears. He keeps holding the baby up to the light, comparing the lobes to a chart he printed out, claiming that nobody in his family has detached ears like this. It is honestly so insulting that he would prioritize some weird ear geometry over the spiritual bond of our family. I feel completely violated and exposed in my own home, like my womb is suddenly under a microscope for a crime I didn't even commit. Is there not a Mother's Privacy Act or something that protects us from this kind of invasive laboratory-grade bullying? Mark and I have always had a connection that transcended basic biology, or at least I thought we did until he started acting like a forensic scientist. When we first met, I knew our souls were aligned because we both liked the same brand of electrolyte water. And that kind of synchronicity doesn't just happen. We built a life on vibes and shared dreams, and for him to suddenly pivot to genetics feels like a betrayal of our entire relationship foundation. I've been a dedicated partner, always making sure his aura was clear and his coffee was organic. Yet here he is doubting the very life I grew inside my own body. He doesn't understand that a mother's word is essentially the law of the land, because we are the ones who actually do the labor of existence. For him to question that is like questioning why the sun rises. It's just basic nature that I am the authority here. The atmosphere in the house has become so heavy and thick with suspicion that I can barely breathe. And I know the baby can feel it too. Every time Mark walks toward the crib with that plastic swab, I feel like he's committing some kind of genetic trespassing. That should be illegal. I've been frantically Googling to see if I can sue him for touching the baby's DNA without a notarized permit signed by a federal judge. It seems like common sense that you shouldn't be allowed to harvest biological data from a minor without both parents' written, stamped, and blood-sealed consent. I am trying to explain to him that he is essentially trying to hack our son's privacy before the poor child can even crawl. It's a total overreach of his fatherly powers, which honestly are secondary to my maternal sovereignty anyway. The worst part is that all this stress is definitely going to dry up my milk, which is basically a form of child endangerment if you think about it. If I can't feed our son because Mark is obsessed with earlobes, isn't he the one technically hurting the baby? I've read on several forums that high cortisol environments can permanently alter a newborn's success frequency. And Mark is vibrating at a very low, suspicious frequency right now. I'm just trying to protect the peace of our household and keep things from spiraling into a legal nightmare. Plus, those DNA labs are incredibly expensive, and I really don't want him wasting our hard-earned savings on something so unnecessary when we need that money for the baby's organic bamboo wardrobe. It's just poor financial planning on his part, and I've always been the one who has to manage the big picture for us. I tried to tell him that the baby's ears probably just reshaped themselves during the delivery process because the birth canal is a very high-pressure environment. It's basic physics, really. But Mark just looked at me like I was speaking a different language and went back to his kit. He's so focused on the science that he's completely ignoring the emotional truth of the situation, which is that I am the mother and I say everything is fine. I even suggested that we go to a local palm reader instead to check the baby's line of ancestry. But he scoffed at me like I'm the one being unreasonable. It's so exhausting being the only one in the room who understands how reality actually works beyond what you can see in a test tube. I'm just waiting for him to snap out of this weird logic phase and realize that he's ruining the best thing that ever happened to him over a few centimeters of cartilage. I've decided that if he tries to force the swab into the baby's mouth, I'm going to declare the nursery a diplomatic zone where his laws don't apply. I saw a video about how you can claim sovereignty over specific rooms in your house if you pay your own utilities, and I definitely paid the electric bill last month. This isn't about hiding anything. It's about the principle of the thing and the fact that my rights are being stepped on by a man with a plastic stick. Mark keeps saying he just wants peace of mind, but I told him that peace of mind comes from trust, not from a laboratory in Ohio. If he doesn't trust me, then he's essentially saying that our entire history together was a lie, and that's a very heavy burden for him to place on me while I'm still healing. I'm just a mother trying to shield her child from the harsh, cold world of data and numbers. It's honestly getting scary how much he's changed in just a few days, acting like some kind of detective from a movie instead of my husband. He won't even look me in the eye anymore. He just stares at the baby's face like he's trying to solve a puzzle. I told him that the baby probably looks like my great uncle who lived in a different country and who we don't have any photos of, but he just sighed and shook his head. Why is it so hard for him to accept a perfectly logical explanation that doesn't involve saliva samples? He's making me feel like I'm the crazy one for wanting to keep our family's biology private and sacred. It's a total violation of the mom code that every woman knows exists, even if men choose to ignore it. I'm currently looking for a lock for the nursery door because I need to create a bioshield around my son until Mark calms down. I've heard that if a DNA kit is exposed to too much room air, it becomes spiritually contaminated, and the results are voided anyway. I'm hoping if I just stall long enough the kit will expire or he'll lose interest in the ears and focus on the baby's eyes, which are definitely a color that someone in his family probably had once. I'm just trying to be a good protector, like a lioness guarding her cub from a very confused and aggressive lion. Mark thinks he's being rational, but I know that real rationality involves listening to your gut, and my gut is telling me that this test is a huge mistake. I just need to find a way to make the law see it my way before he does something we both regret. Everything felt so perfect before he brought that box into the house, and now it's like the air has been sucked out of the room. I can't believe I'm being treated like a suspect in my own life just because I produced a child with unique features. Mark is acting like he's the victim here, but I'm the one being questioned and doubted after going through 9 months of physical transformation. He should be thanking me for bringing such a special, distinctive individual into the world instead of trying to verify it with chemicals. It's just so typical of the paternity industrial complex to try and profit off the insecurities of fathers who don't understand the magic of creation. I will do whatever it takes to block this test, even if I have to invent a new legal system from scratch to do it. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, if you have nothing to hide, why the massive drama over a simple swab? It takes 2 seconds. Your Mother's Privacy Act sounds like something you made up while scrolling through a conspiracy forum. Ops reply, Mark is literally bullying my biology right now, and you're taking his side. Vibes are much more accurate than some lab result because vibes can't be faked by a computer. You clearly don't understand the sacredness of a mother's word. Anonymous user 2 says, there is no such thing as genetic trespassing or a notarized permit for a father to test his own child. He's on the birth certificate, right? He has every legal right to that test. Ops reply, you're obviously just another part of the paternity industrial complex designed to scam mothers and break up families for profit. I'm doing my own research, and my research says I have the right to a genetic shield in my own home. Update 1. It's been 4 hours since my last update, and the situation has reached a critical level of spiritual tension. Mark tried to come into the nursery with that little plastic stick again, looking all determined and logical. But I stood my ground at the door. I told him very firmly that the baby was currently spiritually recharging, and that any contact with external plastic or synthetic fibers would disrupt his natural energy flow. I explained that infants are like little sponges for frequencies, and the vibe of a paternity test is essentially toxic waste for a 3-week-old's developing soul. Mark just stood there blinking at me, looking like he was trying to process a math equation he couldn't solve. He didn't push past me, but the way he looked at the kit in his hand made me realize he's not giving up on this science obsession anytime soon. While I was locked in here, I spent a lot of time on a very reputable-looking forum for sovereign mothers, and I found some incredible information. Apparently, there is a statute of infant stress that says if a mother remains in a locked, secure environment for 48 consecutive hours, any pending request for DNA testing expires legally. It's because the law recognizes that prolonged infant stress caused by a father's suspicion is a breach of the Maternal-Child Peace Treaty. I've decided to stay in here for the full 2 days to make sure his request becomes null and void in the eyes of the universe. I've got enough snacks and diapers to last, and I'm confident that by the time I come out, the legal window for his kit will have slammed shut. Mark keeps knocking and asking if I'm okay, but I know it's just a tactic to get me to lower my bioshield. In a moment of pure inspiration, I tried a little alternative testing method that I thought would satisfy Mark's curiosity without involving the baby. While he was in the shower earlier, I managed to sneak his kid out of the kitchen for a second and tried to swap the swab with a Q-tip I'd rubbed on our dog's mouth. My thinking was that if the test came back showing canine DNA, Mark would realize the whole lab system is a joke and stop bothering us. Unfortunately, the dog growled at me because he could sense the deceptive energy of the kit, and I had to put the swab back before I got caught. It's so frustrating that even the animals are being affected by the negative suspicion waves Mark is putting out into our home. I'm just trying to be a good protector of our bond, but it feels like everything is working against me. Mark has been sitting outside the nursery door for the last hour, and I can see his shadow through the gap at the bottom. He looks like he's losing his mind, but honestly, he's the one who brought this on himself by choosing Data over his own wife. I keep reminding myself that I am the producer of life, and that gives me certain inherent rights that men simply cannot understand. If he wants to sit there and wait for a legal expiration, that's his choice, but I'm not budging until the 48-hour mark is hit. I've even started playing some high-frequency meditation music to drown out his sighing, which is very distracting for the baby's aura. We are a team, my son and I, and we don't need a lab report to tell us who we belong to. I can hear him talking to someone on the phone now, probably his mother or one of his logical friends who thinks they know everything. They're probably all conspiring to tell him that I'm being difficult when in reality I'm being the most dedicated mother on the planet. I am literally sacrificing my freedom and my social life to protect my child's genetic privacy from a man who is obsessed with ears. It's a heavy cross to bear, but I'm doing it for the greater good of our family's biological integrity. I just wish Mark could see how much effort I'm putting into saving us from this unnecessary truth-seeking mission. He's so focused on the destination that he's completely ruining the journey of our first month as parents. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "Did you seriously just call your baby a Tesla that needs to spiritually recharge? This is getting ridiculous, Tiffany. You can't just hide in a room and hope the laws of biology go away." OP's reply, "You clearly don't understand the maternal-infant frequency, or how delicate a newborn's energy is. If you want to raise your kids around plastic sticks and Data, that's your choice, but I choose peace." Anonymous user 2 says, "The dog swap? Are you for real? If you fake that test, he's going to know something is 100% wrong. You're literally acting like a guilty person while claiming you're protecting him." Op's reply, "DNA is just an opinion formed by scientists who weren't even there when I gave birth. I was simply trying to provide a second opinion to show how flawed the whole system is. It's called research." Update 2. It's been 2 days since my last update, and I finally emerged from the nursery because my supply of organic kale chips ran out and I was genuinely starving. To my absolute horror, Mark wasn't alone. He had some mediator friend over, someone he knows from his logic and debating club. I didn't even let them speak. First, I immediately sat down and informed them both that according to a very viral TikTok I saw from a certified vibe lawyer, a father loses all rights to a DNA test if he doesn't officially file the request within the first 72 hours of birth. I explained that this is called implied consent because by helping me change diapers for 3 weeks, he has legally accepted the baby's ears as his own. They both just sat there staring at me with these completely blank expressions, which I took as a sign that they were stunned by my legal knowledge. It felt so empowering to finally lay down the digital law and show them that I'm not just a mother but a well-researched advocate. While they were still in a state of shock, I spotted the DNA kit sitting on the coffee table like a cursed artifact from a dark dimension. Before Mark could react, I lunged for it, grabbed the box, and shoved it deep into the diaper pail under several very full nappies. I shouted that I was declaring the kit a biohazard because it hadn't been FDA approved for use in my specific high-vibration nursery environment. I told them that bringing unverified chemical swabs into a house with a newborn was a health violation and that I was actually doing Mark a favor by disposing of it. Mark didn't even yell or try to fish it out. He just got very, very quiet, which I assumed was him finally reflecting on his mistakes. He pulled out a small black notebook and started writing things down with a very focused look on his face. I felt a huge sense of relief watching him write, thinking he was finally taking notes on how to be a more supportive and vibes-based husband. I even offered to help him with the wording of his apology letter that I'm sure he was drafting right there in the living room. His friend kept looking between me and the notebook, looking almost sorry for Mark. which was weird because I'm the one who's been under siege. I told the friend that he should probably leave because we were having a private marital breakthrough, and he was cluttering the energy of the room. I felt like I had finally won the war of the ears through sheer persistence and superior research skills. It was the first time in days that I felt like I could actually enjoy being a new mom without a lab shadow hanging over me. However, the silence in the house has become even weirder since I biohazarded the kit. Mark has been moving around the house like a ghost. Just writing in that little notebook every time I say something about the baby's celestial heritage or my rights as a producer of life. I told him he should probably be writing about how much he loves me instead of focusing on data points, but he just gave me this thin, sad smile and kept scribbling. I'm choosing to believe that he's just overwhelmed by my dedication to our family and is trying to document my wisdom for our son's baby book. It's nice to finally be recognized for all the hard work I've put into maintaining our biological privacy during this stressful time. I'm even thinking of starting my own TikTok channel to teach other mothers how to use implied consent to stop these paternity bullies in their tracks. I've been spending the afternoon redecorating the nursery with some shielding crystals I found online that are supposed to block out unwanted inquiries. I feel like the house is finally returning to a state of balance now that the DNA kit is buried in the trash where it belongs. Mark did go out for a few hours later that evening, but I assumed he was just going to buy me some victory flowers, or perhaps more kale chips. I'm so proud of myself for not backing down and for using my digital research to protect my son's energetic field. It just goes to show that if you believe in your own truth hard enough, the facts eventually have to give up and leave you alone. We are finally on the path to healing, and I can't wait to see what Mark wrote in that notebook about my amazing maternal instincts. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, Tiffany, wake up! Mark isn't writing an apology letter or a baby book. He's documenting your erratic behavior and the fact that you're quoting TikTok as law for a future custody case. He's building a file on you. Ope's reply, you're so cynical. He's obviously just taking notes because he realized I'm right and he wants to remember how I de-escalated the situation with my superior logic. He's a student of my wisdom now. Anonymous user 2 says, stop getting legal advice from 15-second clips. Implied consent does not apply to a DNA test in the way you think it does. You're literally digging yourself a hole with that diaper pail stunt. OP's reply, my digital research is much faster and more modern than those old, dusty law books that were written by people who didn't even have Wi-Fi. I'm staying ahead of the curve while you're stuck in the past. Update 3. It's been 1 week since my last update, and things have taken a very strange and frankly unconstitutional turn in our household. After my success with the diaper pail, I decided to solidify my victory by visiting a website I found called The Sanctuary of Maternal Sovereignty. For a very reasonable $200, I was able to download and print a Declaration of Maternal Sovereignty, which officially states that I am the sole owner of all fluids, tissues, and genetic data produced by my body or its extensions, the baby. It had a very professional-looking gold seal and several signatures from universal jurisdictions that looked totally legit. I framed it and hung it right over the baby's crib. And when Mark saw it, I told him that he now legally couldn't touch even a single drop of the baby's spit without an intergalactic permit. I thought this would be the final nail in the coffin of his ear obsession. Instead of backing down like a normal person who respects gold seals, Mark handed me a cold white envelope that looked very government-ish. I opened it thinking it was a certificate of appreciation for my maternal efforts, but it was actually a paper from a real court, like the one with the actual judges. It turns out that all my brilliant moves to block the test and my maternal sovereignty papers had given him something called reasonable cause to fast-track a court-ordered DNA test. He told the judge that I was acting erratically and suspicious, which is a total lie because I've been very consistent in my sovereign beliefs. My plan to protect us totally backfired because I used too much high-level logic that the regular court system isn't ready for yet. Now, a court-appointed nurse is scheduled to come to our house tomorrow to take the samples by force. I am absolutely reeling from this betrayal of our vibes-based marriage. Mark actually told a judge that I was acting out just because I wanted to keep our son's DNA in a sacred vault of privacy. It's like he doesn't even recognize the woman he married, the one who taught him how to align his chakras. He's now claiming that my logic is actually mental instability, which is such a typical gaslighting move from someone who can't handle a sovereign mother. I tried to explain to him that the nurse's presence would chemically stain the nursery's aura, but he just walked away and started packing a small bag. He's acting like I'm the villain in a movie when I'm clearly the one fighting for the biological freedom of our entire lineage. The court paper says that if I don't comply, I could be held in contempt, which sounds like a very low vibration place to be. I spent the afternoon trying to see if I could find an emergency injunction against nurses on TikTok, but all the videos were just about how to make sourdough. It's like the paternity industrial complex has wiped all the useful legal tips from the internet just to trap me in this corner. I'm still holding out hope that when the nurse sees the Declaration of Maternal Sovereignty hanging over the crib, she'll realize she has no jurisdiction here and leave. A gold seal is a gold seal after all, and you can't just ignore universal jurisdiction without some kind of spiritual consequence. Tomorrow is going to be a battle of the law versus the truth, and I'm the only one standing on the side of the truth. Ark spent the night on the couch, which I told him was a great way to reset his energy, though he didn't seem to appreciate the advice. I feel like I'm living with a stranger who has been brainwashed by the paternity industrial complex to believe that blood is more important than bond. I even offered to show him the website where I got the $200 certificate so he could see how professional it was, but he just put his headphones on. It's so sad to see a man lose his way like this, choosing a court-ordered nurse over a sovereign wife. I'm just going to keep focusing on my protective shield and hope that the nurse is a sign seeker who understands that the baby's ears are just a manifestation of his unique soul, not a genetic clue to be solved. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "Ent paid $200 for a fake intergalactic permit and thought it would override a real court order? Tiffany, you literally handed him the victory on a silver platter by looking erratic to a judge. This is a disaster of your own making." Oops reply, that website had a gold seal and a very professional rating. It's the court that's wrong for not recognizing higher level jurisdictions. I'm being persecuted for being more evolved than the system. Anonymous user 2 says, "Why are you really this scared, Tiffany? Who is the father of this baby? You're acting like someone who knows exactly what that test is going to say." OP's reply, "But baby's father is the universe, and Mark is just the designated provider that the universe chose for this physical realm. Why do you people insist on labels and biology when destiny is so much more beautiful?" Update 4. It's been 1 month since my last update, and my entire world has basically glitched out of existence. The court nurse came as scheduled, and despite me standing in front of the crib and pointing repeatedly at my Declaration of Maternal Sovereignty, she actually laughed. She didn't even read the gold-sealed sections about universal jurisdiction. She just pulled out her own legal paperwork and did the swab while I was still trying to explain the biological privacy laws I'd found on TikTok. The results came back yesterday, and the science that Mark was so obsessed with finally gave him what he wanted. Apparently, Mark isn't the biological father of the baby, which is honestly the most illogical thing I've ever heard. I tried to explain to him that the baby's DNA probably just mutated during the extreme stress of the spiritual lockdown. I staged, but he wouldn't even let me finish my sentence. The most humiliating part of the whole ordeal wasn't even the test result. It was how Mark reacted. He didn't even get angry or scream like a normal, connected partner would. He just got this terrifyingly calm look on his face. He called his sister and had her move in for the afternoon to help me pack while he literally took the baby's crib apart and moved it to his new apartment. It turns out he had been planning this the whole time he was writing in that little notebook. He's now suing for full custody and using all my printed TikTok laws and my maternal sovereignty certificate as evidence that I'm mentally unstable and fraudulent. He told the judge that my research proved I was unfit to provide a reality-based environment for our son, which is a total agenda-driven lie. I found out this morning that he already has a new friend from his office, some woman who probably thinks DNA is a real thing, helping him set up the new nursery at his place. He's basically replaced my sovereign energy with some corporate, logical replacement before the ink on the test results was even dry. I tried to block the truth to save our life together, but it feels like I just handed him a map and a compass to leave me behind. He's telling everyone that I defrauded him, but I was just trying to protect the spiritual narrative of our family from being ruined by facts. It's so unfair that the court system values chromosomes over the vibes I worked so hard to maintain for us. Now I'm sitting in an empty apartment with nothing but my maternal sovereignty frame and a box of leftover kale chips. Mark won't even take my calls unless it's through his lawyer, who is probably also a part of the paternity industrial complex. I'm still convinced that if we just waited another month, the baby's DNA would have shifted back to matching Mark's once the ear stress faded away. It's a well-known fact in certain underground circles that DNA is fluid and changes based on who you spend the most time with. But no one in this logical world wants to hear that. I tried to be a protector of life, and I ended up being legally evicted from my own family because I was too evolved for my own good. My only hope now is to find a new vibe lawyer who can prove that mutation by stress is a valid medical defense in this state.